Hey everyone, Cristiferbeast here. In today's video, we're going to be exploring all of the named POIs that are located in Kjerstin. This is just going to be a general exploration of the map with some limited details as to what's going on in each POI. So let's start off with this first POI, the location Broaden. This location is a small shack located on the top of a tallish mountain, where you'll be able to get high ground over all of the enemies in the surrounding area, as well as a decent bird's eye view of the area. There also spawns a weapon crate up here and some basic resources, so it's not a great POI, but it's a strategic one you can use to get a quick assessment of the surrounding area. Moving on from here, there is a road you can follow that heads to the west. So making our way along this road, we can begin to head to the next POI. This road is a bit dangerous though, as it's located in an open field, which will make pushing through it not fun, as it's pretty hard to stay in cover and really just not get sniped off, especially considering the fact that it is located in the low ground of the POI I just mentioned. However, after you've finished waddling your way through this low ground, you arrive at the next POI, which is a location called Biff Manor. Arriving at Biff Manor, we can see a red longhouse and a white large building. If you've played the game before, you know what these two buildings look like on the interior, as they are the same buildings from other maps. This one also has in the back the little shack thing that is used on Falcanton and many other maps, kind of making it a little bit denser of an area. Around the house to the east is those open fields I talked about earlier, but to the west is a major road that is completely open to sniping from the dam. This is a location you don't really want to get caught in unless you're inside the house for some reason, because being outside here is simply putting you at a disadvantage. Going around the back, we can actually see a small little bee area where there's just bees. I'm guessing you can get food here if you're someone that likes looting food. But besides for that, it has no real strategic purpose. Alright, so getting away from that POI, we can begin to head south. You can see on our right is the entrance to the dam from the east. You can go this way if you want. I'm personally not going to do it in this video because I want to loop around the entire map before getting to the dam, because you save the best for last. So instead, I headed south through these side little mountain paths that kind of curve around the dam and go down the cliff towards the banks of the dam, the river that's underneath the dam, as well as our next POI. You just gotta walk through these mountain paths a little bit, and honestly, these paths should be pretty safe if we're thinking about getting counter-sniped because of the amount of trees here. Getting to our next POI, however, we have the location of the Vista of St. Malkin. This tiny little location is very similar to the ones we see on Sawmill, of just tiny little sniper posts. We also see one in Vigor, and probably other maps. They're unremarkable little POIs, but they're POIs. This one is actually not horrible because it gives you decent sight lines over the dam and the low ground of the river, but it's not as good as the earlier mentioned mountain POI, and it's really nothing compared to the sniping that the dam will offer you in a little bit. We can continue to head south, deeper into these forests that curve all around this POI, to make our way to the next POI. This location, located deep in the forest, is the Outlander's camp. It's really unremarkable and has nothing there. However, there is a lighter spawn here, and this is actually where I got my brand new lighter for this map. It's kind of an unremarkable location. Most likely in an actual encounter you will never go here. It's just too small. Moving on from the Outlander's camp, we can travel a little bit farther to get to the most useless POI on this map. Now, I really do love most of this map, and I'm a huge fan of it. However, I've got to admit, I have no clue why this is a POI. If you know anything about the Forrest nursery in Sawmill, welcome to its younger, smaller, even more irrelevant brother. The Forrest nursery on Sawmill is a bad POI at best. Its only real advantageous point is that it has this cool high ground all the way at the top where you can snipe people who are on the bottom of the POI. This doesn't have that because this one's smaller. So it doesn't have any of the benefits and has all of the cons of just taking up space. I don't think this is a location you're going to go through. I don't really see the point in it. Maybe it will grow on me with time, but at the moment, I'm just not a fan. Now, the last few POIs were very forest-based, and I'm not going to lie, not exactly my favorite thing. I think that's in part because they remind me a lot of Sawmill. I love Sawmill, but the part of Sawmill they remind me of is the part of Sawmill I don't like. These next couple POIs do the opposite and remind me of Bridges, and the parts of Bridges I love. If you don't know, Broaden Bridges is my favorite map, and this area, if you are a Broaden fan, is going to be like heaven for you. It is a lot like Bridges in the way that it is much more denser populated areas, a lot of houses, long roads, the main cover being, random rocks and, fields just kind of everywhere. Bar the difference being that it's only one part of the map because you still have the dam, you still have everything else that's going on in this map. And also that if you're a looter and you just want to loot, there are going to be a lot less players in this region than there are going to be in the dam. So you can come down here and I don't think anyone's really going to contest you. So it's like a free looting area on the south side of this map that is basically a baby Bridges that I am just in love with. It is far more flat than Bridges. You don't have to deal with the stupid rising and the falling of the hills. It's kind of just one consistent road that runs alongside a river, and I am a huge fan of it. There's also a lot of scattered tanks and just scattered loot, but it all terminates in another POI, so if it starts in that previous POI that has a safe spawn, it ends in another POI that has a safe spawn that's a big red building. We know how big red buildings work, so I don't really need to go into depth there, but I think it's just a good area. There's just kind of mini Bridges completely contained within the south side of the map. However, I know a lot of you want to get into more of the unique aspects of the map, and we can find these unique aspects by making our way towards the dam again. As we make our way towards the dam, we can see that the terrain is drastically changed with a lot of destroyed tanks, and we're back towards that more foresty combat that we saw earlier. We can cross a small little bridge to pass over the river, the smaller river that the dam produces. And after making our way through this long, winding road with tanks and trees, we can slowly make our way to the next POI. This POI is a gated-off building called the Plant Laboratory. It is pretty strange, but for the loot aspect and the aspect you guys rightly care about right now, you got 3 buildings, 2 long gray ones, and a tall gray one. There also is a chance for a safe spawn here, and there's a decent amount of cars, so when we're talking about loot, this location is probably one of your better POIs. The areas around this are dense forest, and as I said earlier with the Sawmill, I'm not a huge fan of dense forests, but if you are, this is very dense forest, much denser than what I was showing earlier with the Outlander, and it's just very dense. But ignoring the dense forest and making our way along the coast of the river, we can finally make our way to the POI you guys have been waiting to see this whole video. And goddamn, it's a big dam. This thing is massive. It is 198 meters from side to side, 75 meters tall, and 10 meters wide at its shortest point. It can get much wider than 10 meters at other points. However, I was unable to find the point where it is the widest. So let's start to dig our teeth into this. Starting out on the top is the area of the dam we recognize most. That is the part that was released with the shootout map that came out last season. This area is quite different as it has far less cover and no more scaffolding, and is much more streamlined to just not be as dense as it was during the shootout match. However, if you head down this small little cave here, you can recognize this little room that is also in the shootout map. This room is largely unchanged. However, what is changed is pretty much the rest of the dam. Heading down here, you can see on your right this hidden little walkway that heads down. We're going to come back to that later. Heading onto this crosswalk that normally used to have a little scaffolding allowing you to go onto the surface, the scaffolding is now gone, streamlining the process even more, which is good because this thing is big enough as is and doesn't need any more unnecessary complexities. Heading down this path, we eventually get into the heart of the dam, or the engineering core. This is our central hub, and it is very easy to get fucking lost in this place. I had to record this thing like 6 times before I eventually figured out my way around as to how to navigate. There is a lot of loot, and it is very complicated to move around, and it's easy to get lost, so be aware of that. These stairs here lead you back upstairs onto these little crosswalks here. These little crosswalks lead off into the distance, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But in this area, you kind of get another upper command center, where if you follow all the way up, you can see another set of stairs that lead you to the door that was blocked off in the shootout match. So this is another way in. There are a lot of ways into the dam. This thing is very complicated and very confusing, so try not to get lost. Jumping over the broken catwalks, we can kind of investigate where these catwalks lead to, and we get ourselves a nice little elevator shaft. We haven't gotten our hands on an elevator yet, but it's a nice little, tell of what's to come with the elevators later on. The elevator shaft is a same elevator shaft that we are aware of from the shootout map. In fact, it starts right here on the shootout map, and you can use it to get back onto the top of the dam. Jumping back down, you can see inside there is an elevator shaft that you can jump into, like an elevator carrier, but I'm not going to go into that because it's stupidly hard to get out and the controls are really janky, and it takes too long and radiation be a problem. I missed the jump here and fell back into the heart of the body of the dam. That should just give you a concept of how tall this thing is. There are multiple parts you can just jump off, fall, and nearly die and still be indoors. Running into a side chamber, we can head down here and begin to investigate more. That stairway there leads out, so if that's another way out if you wanted to go there. But that is not where we're going for today. We want to make sure we don't get lost, so instead we want to try to find the route that leads down. That is the way that goes up. And this is the one that goes down here. So now we're heading deeper into the dam. This is a very large room, kind of like the next big room that we can enter, and we're walking around on these catwalks that kind of suspend above the room. You can jump off these catwalks, by the way, and take tons of fall damage if you so desire. Following one of these catwalks to the end, we can kind of get into this little room at the end of the main room where we get our first hands on an actual lift. You can take this elevator down to the bottom floor if you so desire, or you can use it to go up to here if you're on the bottom floor. Going off into the side room here, we can follow this long, treacherous hallway to find the result of that mysterious passageway I was talking about earlier. You can climb up this to get up to the top of that floor I was at earlier, or you can jump down there from that floor I was on earlier and end up there. There is another exit that leads onto the side of the dam. As I said, a ton of exits. So don't really worry too much about getting stuck inside the dam, as there are a lot of exits. The more so the question is if those exits matter, because a lot of time the rads will kill you in this thing because it is big, confusing, complicated, and a lot of these exits aren't exactly helpful at getting you anywhere closer to an extract point. There also are a lot of weapon crates just kind of sitting around. I'm going to loot a lot of these because I just kind of felt like it. There's a lot of them. If you ever have a challenge to open weapon crates, there you go. Also, I'm not going down below here. You can see the ladders that lead down. There's nothing down there, at least to my knowledge. There's just like a red little area and kind of like a subterranean level. There most likely will be a lighter spawn down there is my guess, or maybe one of the POIs spawns down there. I've never seen anything spawn down there in all of the rounds I've played on the preview build, but I'm willing to bet that something eventually spawns down there. If anything, it might just be a dangerous little camping spot that people might use, but I'm hopeful that that's not the case. Following another one of these side tunnels around, and we get off-shot into the middle of nowhere again. But this time, we can see another secret tunnel. This one we're going to follow. Following this tunnel leads us through random parts of the dam, but can get us to a higher level. I just wanted to show off what the inside of one of those would look like, but if we follow the path that we are now on, we should eventually find ourselves face to face with another exit. This being the exit that I talked about earlier, that just exits onto the side of the dam. Taking a right here, we also can get back into the main room. So if you wanted to go from the main room to where we just were, you can use the reverse path that I'm taking now, and just jump down this secret little thing. Well, not really secret, but side tunnel. And there's, again, this is another thing that just makes the dam very complicated to navigate because there's all sorts of like little rat holes and worm things that go everywhere, and you just gotta get a feel for it. And once you're used to it, you're used to it. I am not used to it at all at this moment because just not enough time played. Getting into one of these elevators, we can begin to head down into the lower levels of the dam. Most of this stuff that we've been going through has been the upper layers, so it's time to head even deeper, going down into the lowest levels of the dam. The lowest levels of the dam are ground level with the ground outside of the bottom of the dam, so those are equal with each other. You don't have to turn around once you get into the lift, and it's because it's going to shoot you out on this direction. And you can start wandering around in the little mouse holes that are down here. This here is the entrance to the main room. We got some cool little generators. I'm not exactly going to go into the main room at this moment. I'm going to come back here in a moment because first I'm going to show off another side tunnel. But this would be the main room if you were to enter through the front door. And I will show this off in a moment. Sprinting back across the entire lower terrain level, and we get into this weird little room with red pipes. It's weird. It's weirdly lit. You can climb under the pipes or climb over the pipes. It's kind of there as a room. It's cool design-wise. I'm not shitting on this design. I think it looks dope. But I figure I mention something while we're here. As you saw, there was a time safe button. POIs in this dam are something you should largely forget about. You're not really going to be able to get your hands on them because they're kind of just almost impossible to find. You get very lucky if you find one, but because of how stupidly complex this location is, you're most likely not. Here's a cool little cinematic room I saw that is just really cool. It's right outside one of the entrances, which, by the way, we just passed another one of the entrances / exits. But by walking through the slightly flooded tunnel, you can kind of get to it, and it's really nice lighting and just looks cool. Red lighting, and it's dope. Walking around back, we're going to trace our steps back to that main room I was talking about earlier, so that way we can show that off. And which is, the main room is also the room you enter if you were to enter the dam from the front door. I know I've been rambling a lot, but I'm rambling because there's a lot to cover here, and I'm trying to get it done in the quickest amount of minutes as possible, because this dam sure is big, and I'm trying to make sure you guys get every little detail of random tidbit of information you can get about it. Entering into this main room now, we can start to get a look at the main generator room that you would be entering if you walked in from the front door. These generators are dope, and I'm sure there'll be some awesome firefights occurring in this room in the future. Me and Bobo had a firefight over it, and it was quite some fun. Here's that entrance I showed in the very beginning when I was showing off how big this thing is. This is where you'd be coming in from. Really just the ground level if you're coming off the street. You can also take this side tunnel here to get another exit that is just a little bit higher up and gives you kind of a tiny bit of overwatch over the region. Or you can decide to jump out onto one of these little pieces of concrete that jut out into the water and completely expose yourself and have no benefit to your plan at all and just kind of look dumb. But the weapon crates aside, and stupid strategy aside, the dam really has a lot of loot and is really a place for a heaven and a hell for looters, because it's a heaven for how much loot that's there, and it's a hell for how many players it's going to attract, no matter what happens. Alright, so back to the serious part of the guide, we can head up these stairs that I passed over earlier and get to the second layer of this room. This room is really big and spacious, and I love the fucking design of it. It's simply beautiful and reminds me of something out of a game like Chernobyl or Stalker. It's very, very well done, and I'm a huge fan of it. And it's inside combat that just hasn't existed in this game before, and I'm all here for it. And I'm hopeful that this is the start of a lot more inside combat, because just the potential's there. But we can continue up the stairs, and now we're on the roof. We're on the roof of not the dam, but this small building under the dam. And this roof, I guess, is some decent high ground. It will give you a little bit of overwatch over if anyone's trying to push the dam or anything on the low ground. However, ultimately, you'll just get sniped out by the dam people if you're trying to do anything with that high ground for too long. It's simply just not the best high ground when there's a giant dam 20 feet behind you. But that is it for today's video, guys, and I hope you guys at least now vaguely have an idea of what Kjerstin will look like when it drops for you guys in the future. And I'm hopeful you guys get to play this as soon as possible, because it's quite fucking beautiful, and I'm really excited to be able to play this against other actual players. But that's all from me today, and I'll see you all next time.